Emma had always been careful with social media. She had friends, a few close ones, but her circle was small and her account settings were locked down. She didn't post much, just a few pictures here and there, mostly from family gatherings or school events. But one afternoon, while scrolling through her feed, something caught her eye, a notification from Snapchat. New friend request. The username was cryptic, someone watching. Emma frowned. It wasn't anyone she knew, and the name alone gave her a strange, uneasy feeling. She hesitated, thumb hovering over the ignore button. But curiosity got the better of her, as it often did, especially when she had a dull moment to fill. She tapped accept, not thinking much of it. It wasn't like she had anything to hide, right? Moments later, a message pinged her screen. "Hey, Emma." She gazed at the message for a few seconds, trying to think what it could possibly mean. How could this individual know her name? Her stomach grew tighter. "Who is this?" she replied. "Don't you remember me?" came the instant reply. "I see you every day in school. I've been watching you for some time now. You never seem to notice me." Emma's pulse quickened, a shiver crawling up her spine. It wasn't so much the words themselves, but the eeriness of them. Who was this person? What did they mean by watched? She shook her head, dismissing the message as some kind of sick joke. Just a prank, she thought, her fingers shaking slightly as she typed back. "Who are you? What do you want?" The response was slow, and when it did come, it was even more frightening. "You don't need to know my name. Just thought we should get to know each other. I know where you are right now." Emma blinked. The message felt like a slap in the face. She was sitting in her room, but how could this stranger possibly know that? She ignored the message and turned off her phone. She tried to shudder off the feeling creeping up her neck, telling herself it was just someone who had too much time and was trying to get a rise out of her. But as she continued her day, the feeling didn't go away. Something was wrong. It didn't feel right. She had heard of creepy people on the internet, and perhaps this was just one of them. For the next couple of days, Emma received messages from the same user. "I see you at the mall," it would say. "You were walking with that guy in the red hoodie today, weren't you?" Each message made her feel more uneasy. The detail, the precision, how did they know these things? She told herself she was overreacting, but there was something about the messages that gnawed at her. They weren't just vague or random. They were specific, too specific. "Hey Emma, I know you're home right now. I see your bedroom window is open." That one ran a shiver down her body. She looked at her bedroom window. It was cracked open by only a few inches, as it always was on such weather. But how did they know? Her heart was now racing. She wanted to block the user, but for some reason did not do it. What if it was just some sick joke? What if it was just a prankster trying to mess with her head? Then came the final message that pushed her to the edge of panic. "I see you in the kitchen right now." Emma froze. The words rang in her head like a hammer hitting metal. She was sitting in her room, but she could hear the soft hum of her refrigerator from the kitchen. She hadn't moved. She hadn't gone anywhere near the kitchen, yet this stranger seemed to know exactly where she was. Terrified, she stood up, walked cautiously toward her bedroom door, and peeked out into the hallway. The house was quiet. Her parents were still at work, and her younger brother was out with friends. She was alone. Suddenly, the hairs on the back of her neck stood up. There it was again, the sound of the refrigerator humming from the kitchen. "Maybe I'm just being paranoid," she muttered to herself, swallowing hard. Then the vibration began in her hand. This other message from the stranger. "Do not go in the kitchen. You're safe for now. I see you." Her heart pounded as she stared at the screen in horror. The stranger had seen her. How? She quickly glanced at the kitchen from her spot in the hallway. The door to the kitchen was open, and everything seemed normal. The counter was clear, the dishes were stacked neatly, and the light above the sink flickered faintly. Emma could not shake that feeling. It was like an invisible weight was suffocating her. She had to check it. She needed to know. She shivered again, opening her phone. In her messages, her fingers stopped on one. This was a picture, but it had been sent 1 minute ago. She breathed in sharply as a sweat broke out on her cold skin. The picture was of her kitchen, her actual kitchen. Not some generic image, but her very own kitchen, taken from the outside through the window. The window she had been standing in front of only moments before. The photo showed the sink, the countertops, the microwave, the hanging dish rack. But the most terrifying part, the reflection in the window. It was dark outside, but Emma could make out something, or someone, standing in the shadows just outside her kitchen window. The light of the house did not reach it. She couldn't quite see details, but there was definitely something there, watching. Her phone fell from her grasp, clattering on the floor. She took a step back from the hallway, her breath coming in shallow, rapid gasps. What the hell was going on? Who was this person? How long had they been watching her? She sprinted to the door and slammed it shut behind her. She needed to lock it, but when she turned the lock, she heard its footsteps on the stairs. Slow, methodical, coming closer. Emma's breath hitched. Her heart pounded like a war drum in her chest. She glanced toward her phone, which lay on the floor, the screen dark, but the notification was still there. The figure in the window. The footsteps continued. She grabbed her phone, her hands shaking uncontrollably, and dialed her mother's number. The line rang, but there was no answer. "Mom, pick up, please," she whispered, her voice trembling. Again, she heard the sound of footsteps, but closer. Emma's stomach churned inside. The door to her room was still shut, but knew it wouldn't hold for much longer. She could think clearly. She must get out. She can't stay in the house anymore. But how? The front door was locked, and if the stalker was already inside, she couldn't risk going downstairs. "Think, Emma, think," she said to herself. Her brain leapt back to the window in the kitchen. This figure, whomever he was watching her, but he hadn't gone in. Not yet. She sprinted to the window in her room, quietly opened it, and peeked outside. The yard was dimly lit and dark, with the trees creaking in the wind. This was the perfect moment to run. The stalker was probably inside, but no one would ever expect her to leave from the window. She came out, her heart thudding in her chest as she lowered herself slowly onto the ground. All sounds seemed to boom within the stillness of night. The crunch of leaves underfoot, the rustling of branches, her breathing ragged and uneven. She did not stop running. She did not look back. The police are called, and by the time the cops arrive, it is late into the night. There's no sign of forced entry. No one is left in the house. She almost feels like her stalker has vanished in thin air. But for Emma, she knew otherwise, and that was where the reality lay. Her stalker was out there somewhere, watching her, waiting patiently. She left soon thereafter, starting fresh in a new town, new friends. But the fear never really left her. Every knock on the door, every buzz on the phone made her heart pump. Somewhere out there, someone knew too much, and Emma would never forget. Before moving on to the next story, if this is your first time, make sure to subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon for the next stories. We need your support. Please share these stories with your friends and family. Thank you. Maya had always been a curious and adventurous college student, driven by the need for excitement and connection. She thrived on the spontaneity of her life, juggling studies, friends, and a social media presence that she felt gave her life a little more meaning. She was an active Snapchatter, sharing bits and pieces of her life in quick, whimsical photos and short-lived stories. But things changed when a mysterious figure started sending her cryptic snaps, photographs of places she'd been, people she knew, and even her own bedroom when she wasn't home. At first, she shrugged it off, thinking it was just some glitch or a strange coincidence. But as the snaps grew more unsettling, Maya couldn't ignore the creeping suspicion that something or someone was watching her. Maya tossed her phone onto her bed, her body sinking into the couch as the laughter from her friends echoed in the distance. The party was still in full swing, and Maya had long ago lost track of the time. Her friends had pulled her along into the night, encouraging her to drink more, to let go of the pressures that always weighed on her. She couldn't remember the last time she felt so free, so detached from everything that had been suffocating her for the past few weeks. When the beer in her hand finally cooled to an almost drinkable temperature, her phone beeped. Bleary-eyed but still smiling, Maya grabbed for it and swiped open the lock. Only a snap from old Jamie. He'd sent a picture of their favorite hangout, the park bench under the big oak tree near the dorm. Maya raised an eyebrow. She had gone there this afternoon. There wasn't anything odd about it. She quickly typed a reply. Nice throwback. Then another snap came through. It wasn't Jamie's usual style. He rarely sent pictures of anything other than memes or random inside jokes. But this one was different. It was a photo of the hallway just outside her dorm room. Maya's heart skipped a beat. The snap was taken at a strange angle, almost like it was snapped from behind the door. It showed the dimly lit corridor, the worn carpet, and the faint glow from the overhead lights that made it look like something was lurking just out of sight. She had walked down that hallway just hours ago, coming back from class. Her fingers hovered over the screen as her mind raced. Jamie, are you pranking me? She typed quickly and hit send. No reply. A little uncomfortable, Maya kept staring at the snap for a few more moments. She could have sworn she heard someone laughing in the background, and she half turned toward the noise. However, the laughter dissipated, and she shrugged off the feeling, shaking her head. It was just the buzzing from the alcohol. She didn't pay much heed to it until another snap came through. It wasn't of the hallway, it was a photo of her bedroom. Maya felt her stomach drop. The bed, the desk, the pile of clothes she had yet to fold, everything was just as she left it earlier that day. The snap was taken from a peculiar angle, as though it had been snapped from the corner of the room near her window. She felt a cold sweat prickle her skin as she stared at it. Had someone been in her room? Her thumb hovered on the screen, her head spinning. It was so specific, too specific. Yet she was shaking her head, as if to squelch the creeping feeling of paranoia that was nagging her. Just a glitch, she muttered to herself, finishing off the remainder of beer. It was not. She was not. As the night passed, more snaps arrived. The photos were disturbingly accurate. The bar she and her friends had been to earlier, the corner where she'd bumped into her ex, Daniel. A close-up of her favorite pair of shoes, abandoned under the table at the party. At first, Maya tried to brush it off, telling herself it was just someone who knew her well, someone who was playing a joke, getting a laugh at her expense. But the unease was beginning to settle deeper into her bones. The photos weren't just coincidental. They were following her, watching her. She texted Jamie again. Who's sending these pics? No reply. Stop playing around, guys. No reply. Maya's heart was racing. her fingers trembling as she tried to search for the source of the snaps. Who was behind this? Her mind flashed back to the snap of her room. Had someone been in there? Was someone in her life keeping tabs on her every move? And then, at 2:47 a.m., she received the final snap. The photo had been taken in a dimly lit alley. The brick walls were damp and plastered with graffiti. Bare streetlights couldn't enlighten the sight, but something that did was far more terrifying. Fig, lying down on the ground, hushed, deathly white and limp. Maya was frozen, with her gasping at an image. This was it, her. She knew it was her. The tattered black dress she'd been in all this night long was unmistakable. Her hair splayed out across the cold concrete in all directions, a tangle of locks. She knew the alley. She had used the shortcut on her way to the bar when it got too crowded. She was trying to escape from there. A wave of dizziness suddenly hit Maya, and she almost dropped the phone. How was this possible? How could someone have gotten that close to her? Her stomach churned as the thoughts swirled. Had someone been following her all night? Had she been too drunk to realize it? And then, who had taken that picture? Maya quickly scrolled through the snaps again, desperately trying to piece together the puzzle. She tapped the one with the picture of her room, then zoomed in on the timestamp. It was taken almost 4 hours ago, when she had left the party with her friends. It was from the perspective of someone who had been with her all along. She could feel her chest beating in her rhythm because she ran her fingers over the images. Her palms begin to get wet with beads of sweat as her thoughts go wild. It isn't just a prank and isn't just a bug. She wasn't imagining this as someone was watching all these movements of hers. This is stalking. Maya glanced around the room, half expecting to see someone standing behind her, but the apartment was empty. She could hear the muffled voices from the party downstairs, but the silence in her room felt suffocating. She pressed her back against the wall, trembling as she stared at her phone screen. A thought came to her like a freight train. She had sent a snap hours ago before everything started. She had been at the bar, taking selfies with her friends, and then one of her standing near the alleyway, just a quick shot to show how wild the night had been. She recalled the grin on her face as she snapped it. But as she scrolled down to look at the timestamp, her blood froze. The snap had been sent at precisely 12:04 a.m., and it had been taken from the view of someone who had followed her all along. Maya experienced a sharp, dizzying wave of panic. Who had that snap gone to? She opened the message, her heart pounding, and saw the name. It was a name she did not recognize. A name she'd never seen. 2007. Her throat constricted, and she hurried to block the account. But even as she did, her mind was racing. Who was this person? How long had they been following her? A chill ran down her spine. Maya wasn't just being watched, she was being hunted. Slow ticks of the seconds as she trembled with her fingers. She came out from the chat and opened her stories. She had to work out whether someone had witnessed anything strange. Had anyone noticed that someone was tailing her? Was somebody else followed? But all that appeared on the screen were more pictures, more mysterious images. This time, they were of her, passed out on the sidewalk in front of the bar, in the alley where she'd been lying unconscious. Maya's mind was racing. Had she been drugged? Had someone done something to her? She flipped back to the most recent snap from the alley. Someone had taken it. Someone had been there, over her, while she was helpless. She sat on the floor, numb, her phone slipping from her hands. The walls closing in. She knew the horrible truth. She wasn't safe, not even in her own room. Not even when she thought she was just having fun. The last snap was a message she couldn't ignore. She was no longer in control, and someone was getting closer. Sophia's life was just like everyone else's, ordinary, busy, and full of the small moments that made up a normal college student's routine. She woke up, went to classes, worked on assignments, hung out with friends, and did her best to navigate the complexities of being a young adult. The last thing she would have expected was for her peaceful existence to shatter because of a random Snapchat friend request. But that's exactly what happened. Sophia scrolled through her phone as she sat on the couch in her small, cluttered dorm room. It was late evening, and the glow of her phone screen was the only light that bathed the room. Her roommate, Lucy, had gone to a party, and Sophia, too tired from studying, had decided to stay in. With the windows cracked open, the quiet rustle of the trees outside the building, and the occasional hum of campus life in the distance brought a sense of normalcy to the room. Her Snapchat was open, the stories of her friends flashing by in a blur. Then her eyes stopped on something unusual. A notification popped up. New friend request. It was from an account that had no name, no profile picture, and the bio. Just 2 words. I see you, always. Sophia's stomach churned, but she dismissed it almost immediately. Probably some troll, she muttered to herself, shaking her head. People could be weird online, and she had seen plenty of fake accounts. No harm in ignoring it. So, she swiped left, the notification disappearing into the abyss of the application. The next morning, the sunlight streamed through the blinds of Sophia's room, casting slanted rays on the messy desk and overflowing laundry basket. She stretched lazily in bed, her phone buzzing beside her. At first, she thought it was just another group message about their upcoming exam or Lucy texting her about the party last night. But when she unlocked her phone, her heart skipped a beat. A snap from the same account. Her fingers hovered above the screen for a second. The username was the same, completely blank. The preview on the snap was an image, but it was not a photo, it was a video. She tapped on it, hoping to find something innocuous, maybe a meme or a clip of someone she didn't know. But what she saw made her catch her breath in the throat. The video was shaky, as if the person holding the camera was trying to remain hidden, yet it was clear enough to see. It was her, walking down the sidewalk between 2 buildings on campus. She was wearing her usual oversized hoodie, earbuds in, eyes fixed ahead. The video ended abruptly, and she felt her skin prickle. Sophia stared at it, stunned. The timestamp was just an hour ago when she'd walked to class. Her fingers hovered over the screen, unsure if she should respond or block the account. She couldn't decide as another pinged her notifications, another snap. This one was from the same user, this time showing a video of her sitting at a desk in the library. She was alone, hunched over a pile of books, focused on studying. The camera angle was at a distance, hidden behind a row of bookshelves, but it was clear enough to make her stomach twist with dread. I see you, always. The words from the bio repeated in her mind. She felt a surge of discomfort, followed by a wave of fear. There was no way someone could have gotten this footage so easily. She hadn't seen anyone around her when she had walked to class, nor had she noticed anyone following her in the library. It was too personal, too specific, too real. A chill ran down her spine as she tapped the screen to respond. But before she could type anything, another snap came in. The video this time showed a darkened room, her room. It was a shot of her bed from the corner, as if someone was peering in from the doorframe. Her heart slammed in her chest. She quickly closed the app, her hands shaking. This was no troll. This was someone who knew exactly where she was. Someone who had been watching her. The following days passed in a haze of fear and paranoia. Every time Sophia opened her phone, there it was another snap, more videos, more moments from her life, recorded in the most innocuous settings. There was one from when she was at the grocery store, standing in front of the cereal aisle, holding a box of oat flakes in her hands. Another one when she was in the campus cafe, laughing with Lucy over cups of coffee, oblivious to the camera hidden nearby. Then things started to change. One night, after a particularly exhausting day of exams and lectures, Sophia collapsed into bed, too tired even to change out of her clothes. She was just about to drift off to sleep when a notification pinged on her phone, the familiar snap icon appearing on the screen. This one was different. The video was dark, grainy, but she could make out the familiar shape of her bed. She was in it, but she wasn't alone. A figure sat in the corner of the room, hidden in the shadows. The camera zoomed in on her sleeping form and the faint breathing, almost like someone didn't want to make a sound. It was a video of her while she was sleeping, but the worst part, she never heard a thing. No footsteps, no creaks in the floorboards. Nothing. Her hands trembled as she hit the block button, but it didn't matter. The fear had already gripped her heart, making it impossible to calm down. Who was this person? Why were they doing this? She wanted to tell someone, Lucy, maybe. But what would she say? Would anyone believe her? A stalker, watching her through the lens of her own phone. No, nobody would ever believe her. It was nuts. She never said anything, though, but her terror intensified by each passing hour. The second week went crazy, too. Snaps started being much more intrusive and horrific. She could tell she was in every step that this other unknown figure seemed to make. She can't even relieve herself in the toilet without a new video shot of her unaware doing stuff during the day. One morning, Sophia was walking to class, her head buried in her phone as she checked for any emails from professors. The next snap showed her from a distance, walking alone on the same path. But what made her blood run cold was the voice. For the first time, there was a sound. A whisper, barely audible at first, but then it was clear. The voice murmured, "I'm right behind you." Sophia froze. She spun around, half expecting to see someone standing there, but there was no one. The campus was empty, the usual crowd of students scattered across the buildings, but no one was close enough to hear her thoughts rattle with dread. She quickly closed the app, her hands sweating as her mind reeled. There was no explanation. There was no escape. Then, that night, the worst snap came. She slept. The camera was, however, far behind this time, inches from her face, while hovering over her face as she lay completely oblivious. It was so close. The figure felt almost like touching her with its breath along her neck. But it wasn't possible. Sophia sat bolt upright in bed, her heart pounding so loudly she thought it would burst. She fumbled for her phone, but when she tried to open Snapchat again, it was gone. The account deleted, but the damage had already been done. The next morning, Sophia was a shell of her former self. She hadn't slept, she hadn't eaten, she barely even left her room. But as she sat staring at her phone screen, a thought came to her. If the account was deleted, how did the person know what she was doing next? Her fingers trembled as she scrolled back through her snaps, looking for any trace of the account. She had saved a few videos that showed far too much, but something else caught her eye. A message from Lucy. "Hey, I just got a weird snap. I don't know what it is, but it looks like it's you, and you're in your room." Sophia's stomach lurched. She opened the snap. It was her. No, it was a video of her in her room, taken from behind the window. The realization hit her like a punch to the gut. It wasn't just someone who had been stalking her online. It was someone who had been stalking her, watching her in person. The name of the stalker remained unknown to Sophia. She lost the friend request that she had received. The user account was deleted, but the fear lingered around like a cold presence lurking with her wherever she went. She changed her routines. She locked her doors, tried to pretend everything was going normally. But every time she closed her eyes, she still felt the weight of someone watching her just out of view. And deep down, she knew one thing for sure. The next time, they wouldn't just be behind a screen. They would be standing right in front of her,